frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Well, we might not have the most exciting college football playoff championship game coming up, but we've got a lot to talk about concerning that and more. Why George MacIntyre deserves a shot at the starting quarterback position. Also, Tennessee basketball over the weekend. And I don't know about you, but it felt like Katrina swept through my world as Friday night, guess who slipped on the ice and dislocated their shoulder? That was awesome. Not. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good, Dave. I would say how are you, but I'm guessing you're in a bit of pain right now.
Can you see the brace?
I can't see the brace.
Good. Well, it's there. It's there. And I'll tell a quick story just because I think it's funny. So I was a big fan of Roadhouse, where they said pain don't hurt. So I go in, my shoulder's hanging, literally hanging. And they're like, we're going to put an IV in because it'll help you with the pain. And we're going to give you a sedative so you relax and it won't hurt a local. And I'm like, no, because I want to get out of the emergency room. And I said, just pop it back in. The doctor says, has this happened a lot to you? I said, of course. First time ever. But I knew if I said first time ever, he wouldn't pop it back in. He said, most of the time people can't take the pain and don't relax enough to pop it in. I said, I can do it. So I was able to do it, popped it in. I'm like, man, that feels better. Reached over to put my shoes on, popped it out again. Not a great Friday night in the ER, but here we go. But when I left, it felt pretty cool because he looked at me and he said, you're one tough son of a.
Today's tough question. 4 down. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, here we go. Up and running column on Off the Hook Sports right now. And today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And it is this. Does George MacIntyre deserve a shot at the starting job? Enrolled at Tennessee in the Polynesian Bowl. You've seen Nico Iamaleava that we thought would just grab this job for 2 years, run on and be the first pick in the NFL draft next season. But that doesn't look to be the case anymore. So, Caleb, does George MacIntyre, the 4-star quarterback from Nashville, deserve an open competition with much ballyhooed NIL star, 5-star quarterback Nico Iamaleava, who was the second highest rated quarterback in the nation? I want to remind you, we're represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. We welcome a brand new sponsor to the program, Ted Russell, Lincoln, Knoxville. About to get a Bronco. I'll tell you all about it. But first, does George MacIntyre deserve a shot at the starting job? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. All right, Caleb, let's put the poll question. I'll go ahead and do that now. You tell me what you think. We went over to the 3:45 a.m. production morning, 45 a.m. production meeting, and I told Caleb specifically, don't tell me what you think. I want it fresh on the air. So, does George MacIntyre deserve an open shot to win it like Nico Iamaleava never got in 2023 with Joe Milton, and we know what happened there. You tell me.
Yes, he should. And there's a few reasons why. And I didn't think about this until over the weekend when we had Will West on Friday, and he kind of told us some things about Nico kind of demanding more NIL money. We have learned that Nico's asking for more NIL money. We also know that George MacIntyre would play for less.
Mm-hmm.
We know Nico hasn't blown anybody away with his play after his first year, myself included. And I would have thrown out the whole team chemistry thing. That's why I said you got to stick with Joe Milton in 2023 and then ease Nico in 2024. But the more I kind of thought about it, I'm like, what type of team chemistry is there? If you're another teammate, Dave, whoever you may be on Tennessee, and you see Nico threatening to transfer for more NIL money, and you're like, but you weren't even that blow away great this past year in the SEC. Isn't that worse for team chemistry, honestly? And I don't know. I would start to think if I were a teammate, like, I understand the quarterback gets paid the most money, but 2022 when Jeremy Banks got jealous of Hendon Hooker for making more money, that was stupid. Hendon Hooker was a Heisman caliber player that year. But in 2024, I would kind of resent Nico having the leverage to ask for more money if I were a teammate, given how not amazing he was in 2024. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so the team
now, a couple
chemistry
people on the message board, how about Jake Merklinger, who we haven't mentioned yet, and we were going to get to that. I believe, now these are my eyes, covering recruiting for 25 years, and I've certainly been wrong a lot, so don't take it as gospel. But when I watch those two quarterbacks play, I think there is a different level of talent with MacIntyre. Now, Merklinger has a 1-year head start, and I certainly understand that, but let's just open it up. Does Merklinger deserve a shot? Does anybody deserve a shot? The reason I gravitated towards MacIntyre is because I think he's better than Merklinger. Talent-wise, I think Nico's at the top, but not knowing how to call a play, which we have been told was the case in preseason camp, and it was mumbly and nobody knew what they were supposed to run, is not what Tennessee expected when they signed him up for $2 million a year.
Yeah, so Merklinger was just in case Nico gets hurt, they need a backup quarterback. But let's be honest, guys, there's a red flag with Merklinger, which is he couldn't beat out Gaston Moore.
Right.
This past season. So that should tell you all you need to know, that Merklinger was never the guy that they were going to be able to go with long term. I think George MacIntyre was their future after Nico. And so I'm with you. I think George MacIntyre is going to prove himself to be better than Nico. Not Nico, than Merklinger.
I really don't even think those two are close. That's not just me. That's talking to people in the program, but I don't want to trash Merklinger. I'm trying to be fair.
Right. No, I totally understand.
I mean, some people aren't great as a freshman, and then boom, they hit a level. I mean, Jalen Hyatt went from a guy that didn't work hard enough to the Blitnikoff winner. So, I mean, it could happen.
But you should be higher on the depth chart than a walk-on quarterback. Let's be honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that's my issue of it. Merklinger. So yeah, it's George MacIntyre. If anybody's going to take Nico's job, it's George MacIntyre. And look, again, there are some win-wins here. You're right. MacIntyre is not, he's going to get NIL money, but he's not going to command as much as Nico's going to command. I don't know. The attitude of George MacIntyre coming in, he seems like he already has more moxie than Nico. Is that fair to say?
Well, moxie or not, I will give him a lot of kudos for this. First of all, you've got more leverage because he's an in-state player, like you said. So it's kind of like saving money in the NFL with a first-year quarterback contract, and you can spend that money elsewhere. He's not going to leave. Let's say he makes $1 million a year, which I don't think he's making that or promised that until he performs at a high level. He's not going to leave to go to North Carolina State for 1.25. I don't think so. I mean, and so there's that. And here's something that always stuck in my craw with the Nico and MacIntyre recruitment. How many times did we hear that MacIntyre was recruiting another player for Tennessee?
Oh, all the time. I mean, we know he went heavy for David Sanders.
All the time. How many times did we hear Nico Iamaleava was recruiting for Tennessee as opposed to slamming the ball around on the volleyball court?
Never.
I didn't hear one guy that he reached out and recruited. Literally.
No. And for context, for those who don't know, Peyton Manning wasn't like George MacIntyre. He wasn't a Tennessee fan growing up, but when he got to Tennessee, he recruited hard for Tennessee during that time.
That's almost as much a part of your job as in recruiting as a quarterback as taking a snap. That's the first step. If you're not out recruiting other guys, it makes me question if you're a bit more of a mercenary than wanting to be a VFL. And I don't know that that's the case with Nico, so don't take that as gospel, but George MacIntyre wants to be able to walk in that stadium 20 years from now and say, we celebrate, Jeff Jarnigan will say, we celebrate George MacIntyre and the fact that he is only one of 5 consensus unanimous All-Americans. That's what he wants. He would rather that happen at Tennessee than anywhere else. Does Nico care as much where it happens? Well, and we reported this on offthehooksports.com, his family wanted more money after he's by far the highest paid player on the team and essentially demanded it. Now, I'm told it's not Nico, that it's a family thing or an agent thing, and that's what they're supposed to do. So this is a business now. But after that, I would be even more apt to open my eyes.
Yeah, and we're going to get to how much of a problem is Nico's family in a little while, because there's a little more there that we got to talk about. It's more his family than him. There's also, you're right, and there's that, and again, I go back to the chemistry factor, because you just talked about people George MacIntyre recruited. Dave, let's be honest. Those kids that he brought in, they're going to be loyal. They're willing to play harder for George MacIntyre, right? Doesn't he strike you as just more of a vocal leader for a team than Nico?
Yeah, I think our view of Nico was this, that he's a calm, cool, collected guy. But now I wonder, is he a little too calm, cool, and collected?
Yeah, it's one of those where, and I've always said this. It always, again, this is why it's exactly the stuff people used to say about Marcus Mariota when my Titans drafted him back in the day. And I just go back to that because they always say, oh, he does what he's told. He does exactly what he's coached to do. I don't want my quarterback doing exactly what he's told and what he's coached to do. I want my quarterback kind of butting heads with the coaches every now and then, right? To say, no, we should do this. And grabbing his team by his throat. Like, I want my quarterback to be an extension. Don't you want your quarterback, Dave, to be like almost another staff member in the room, a film study and debating game plans?
Absolutely. Now, are you always going to get that? Jamarcus Russell, no.
Yeah.
But, you hope for that, but that's not always the case. Yes, Peyton Manning, Al Wilson, they were extension. And I mentioned him because he's middle linebacker, and there's some similarities there between playing quarterback. But there's no question that those two positions, but mostly quarterback, you need to be a leader with a voice.
An extension of the coach.
Right. You don't need to be a leader by example. And right now, from everything I've been told, Nico is an incredible leader by example. But is he ready to grab somebody by the shoulder pads and say, do this? I don't know. He wasn't last year, I was told. He needs to be this year.
You know what it reminds me of? It's funny you brought up Al Wilson. You're right, because you need a quarterback who will do this. Fred White used to tell us this story all the time, where during the Florida week, the coaches would always get tense up and they'd be like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. It's Florida week, you got to focus. But apparently every Friday before the games, they would do like a fun scrimmage ahead of time. And the coaches tried to tell them it's 98. The coaches tried to tell them it's Florida week, don't do it. Fred said apparently the defense waved them off. It's like, no, we're doing the scrimmage. We do it every week. You treat it like it every other week. Apparently, Dave, let's be honest. You and I both knew that was probably Al Wilson who was the one who talked to the coaches about that and said, we're doing it no matter what. Well,
I can tell you that Al Wilson determined who played or not on the defensive side. If he went to a coach and said, this guy's dogging it in practice, he just didn't play. Now, a couple of points that I think are really good points on the message board, because I don't want you guys to think we're anti-Nico all of a sudden, because we're not. He is definitely a first-year starter, says Adam. That is very fair. So while we wonder about MacIntyre, while we wonder maybe even, I don't have much wonder about Merklinger, to be honest with you, but while we wonder if Nico is not as good as we thought, he very well could hit light speed and be an incredible quarterback this fall. I don't think that would shock either one of us.
So what you're saying is right now, Nico is the Millennium Falcon in Empire Strikes Back, where the light speed hyperdrive is damaged. and they're just having to hide from the Empire.
Yes.
He
has a celestial offensive tackle issue in the rear main shaft.
Yeah, and he needs R2-D2 to come up and fix it. So that is possible. He could get rolling again in 2025. And look, yes, we're judging off 1 year. There were a lot of interior issues. I think here's my issue with Nico. We talked all year, and I thought about this over the weekend, Dave. We talked all year about, the offensive line was a problem, wasn't protecting for him. Sometimes receivers ran wrong routes. He never got a lot of opportunities. But you know what really sticks in my craw when I talk about that stuff?
What is that?
He got $2 million a year, and he didn't get paid $2 million a year to do his job. You get paid $2 million a year to go way above and beyond your job. And I think it's part of doing that is you are supposed to overcompensate for deficiencies, aren't you? As a quarterback. Like, if that's kind of the thing as a quarterback, you've got to overcompensate for deficiencies, right? If you're that good.
I agree. And
so, no one's going to sit there and say that, like if LeBron goes and loses a title, no one's going to say, well, his backup point guard didn't hit this shot, and if he did, they would have won. No, they'd be like, well, LeBron should have won that title. I mean, like that, no one with Michael Jordan was going to be like, well, Luke Longley didn't hit that shot. If he hits that shot on the baseline, they win anyway. It's like, no, they'd be like, yeah, but it's Michael Jordan's team. He's got to go hit that shot and win the title. Nico, it's like you can't say, well, the tackles are blocking. Well, Nico, you're making $2 million a year. I said you were created and allowed to run this system. You should be able to overcompensate for your lack of support, honestly. You should be good enough to do that.
Have no argument with that. We're live from the Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. We certainly appreciate you being a part of the program. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. That is banksandjones.com. Coming up in just 60 seconds, we're going to dive into the Vols, who played a little bit of basketball over the weekend. I'm curious to hear what you think. I want to remind you, stop by Dynasty Pools and Spas in Athens, and you will get an absolutely free off-the-hook gift just for saying that we sent you. And if you decide to purchase a spa, everything's included and $500 off. What about the Vols on Saturday against Texas? Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. All right, Caleb, let me ask you this. Your thoughts on the Vols. You had a very strong take when it came to Tennessee's performance, and you think they might have found the final piece of a championship. That's pretty strong. Would you like to defend yourself? Because that is what age? And that is kind of what the age.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, Caleb. So you think that the Vols may have found their final championship piece on the basketball court. Strong statement. Why?
Yes, I do. And that is one Darling Stone Dubar. For those who don't know, when Tennessee added Darling Stone Dubar in the offseason, I said he would be this year's Dalton Connect. I was wrong. It turned out to be Chaz Lanier. But Darling Stone Dubar is actually a similar profile to Dalton Connect. Chaz Lanier is just the better player, which is fine. He's the main scorer. But they haven't been able to use him recently because he wasn't picking up the defense as quickly as Rick Barnes had hoped he would. He reportedly had a deeply personal issue early in the season that kind of held him out and stalled his development. And also then he got banged up. So it took a while for them to get him going. Finally, on Saturday, they were able to throw him out there in the game, and I knew they would need to because their lack of depth is an issue, and he proved he's an extra offensive weapon. And I watch him, and I think, man, they really could have used him to manufacture some points against Florida. Darlington Dubar.
That's exactly what I thought.
That's what you thought too?
Yeah, they have to have one guy that's a scorer that's not just a shooter. I mean, even Steph Curry, we think of him as, he changed the game. They're talking about changing the logo because he's an outside shooter. But if it's not for that little teardrop that he throws up in the lane that keeps people honest, I mean, he doesn't get those as open looks. And I think that Tennessee has to have a guy like that. Connect could take it to the rack, which made him really tough to stop. I don't know that Lanier has that in his bag of tricks.
No, you're right. And Neubert, now he was more of a three-point shooter in Saturday's game, but he can post up when he needs to, which is a big deal. It's funny you bring up Steph Curry. You're right. Because I always thought, how did Steph Curry make it in the NBA and not Chris Lofton? The difference was if you face guard Steph Curry, like he'll put the ball on the floor and beat you to the rack every time. Chris Lofton, unfortunately, wasn't quick enough to beat players to the rack if you stayed up on him. So I agree.
But I'll be honest with you. Let me ask you this. Igor, Chaz, Lofton, who was better driving and scoring? I actually think it's Lofton.
I think Chaz is better driving and scoring than Lofton.
But the fact that it's debatable and one was like 6'2". I mean,
you got to remember though, Lofton had 1 year where he was able to drive to the basket, and it was his junior year. But that was because nobody had learned how to play him because he never really did drive to the basket. And then teams kind of started to figure it out, and they're like, okay, if you give him just enough space and guard him to and force him to his left, he's going to struggle a little bit. And that was always an issue with Lofton. I'm not trying to that doesn't mean Lofton couldn't have been a role player in the NBA. It's so crazy he didn't get drafted. A shooter like that should always have a spot, but he couldn't.
He could have been exactly like that kid from Duke. What's his name?
JJ Redick.
JJ Redick. Yeah, he could have. Yeah. He could have been like him.
I agree, and that's where the NBA overvalued size at that time. He would have made it if it was today's NBA. But to the point of Darlington, look, he played 17 minutes. He had 12 points, 6 rebounds, was 3 of 5 from 3. He really stretched the floor. And this is, he gives 2 elements, Dave. One element is exactly what you just talked about. He's another scoring option from another place on the court because he can manufacture a bucket. But the other thing about him is he's another shooter. Why is that relevant? It's kind of the old, it's kind of like the Dallas Mavericks team that won the finals in 2011. There used to be a belief in the NBA of you can't win it with 3-point shooters. I'm sure you remember that belief, right? You can't win it with just 3-point shooters.
Yes.
Because eventually you're going to have an off day. Dallas adopted the philosophy.
I believe that's a little bit true. Not as true as it was,
but Dallas adopted the philosophy. If you have a bunch of 3-point shooters, they're not all bound to be off that night. Someone's bound to be hitting. And so that's kind of what Darlington Dubar gives, because now, okay, Florida, Chaz Lanier was off. Igor Milicic was off. That's fine. Jordan Gainey was off. Well, now you got a fourth option in Dubar. What are the chances all 4 of them are not hitting from 3 in a game? That's a really unlikely chance because they're all sharpshooters. So I think that, honestly, Darlington Dubar, this is a final championship piece. And I'll tell you this right now. This is going to be my hot take. Rick Barnes does love Jemai Mashak's defense, and he prefers it. I don't care. Dubar should be starting over Jemai Mashak. He should be in the starting lineup over Jemai Mashak right now. I'm sorry. Jemai is too much of a liability on offense. They don't respect him at all offensively.
I can't say I would argue with that. East Tennessee's highest volume dealer, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. They're fantastic on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. We're live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios. But my question is, can you trust Dubar moving forward? Because you might be, because he's had the personal issues, because he's been affected by that. I mean, are you willing to put all your eggs in that basket? And we don't know the intricacies behind the personal. I mean, I do, but I don't know how he's feeling personally.
I mean, given the injuries that Tennessee's had and Cameron Carr entering the transfer portal, I think they have to bank on Darlington Dubar to a certain degree now. I'm not so sure there's much of it. I'm not so sure they have much of an option, to be honest with you. Look, Darlington Dubar, he's a smart kid. I think that, he wants to go to the NBA just like everybody else. And he knows this is a shot to develop under Rick Barnes to become an NBA caliber player. So, I mean, you think about that, I would say that I get his personal issues, but Like, you have 3 months to turn yourself into an NBA draft prospect, which is whatever you're going through personally. You got to shove that to the side to create generational wealth for you and your family, right?
Right.
And
Now, go ahead.
And I was going to say, if his family really cared about him, they would be like, hey, stop worrying about us right now. You need to worry about yourself and get that NBA money and don't focus on anything else, because there is a lot of there's a lot on the table for him based on what he can do in the next 3 months.
There is, and it just depends what Tennessee wants to do. I tend to think, though, that Tennessee will be a little bit more conservative with their personnel, and they'll lean towards a defensive guy as opposed to Darlington Dubar. I just think that's Rick Barnes' way. And you just said what they need to do that I agree with. It needs to be more Dubar. It needs to be more offensive minded. So at this point last year, Tennessee was just coming off a win against Georgia, 85-79. So I ask you this. We didn't think that Tennessee was an elite team. I don't know that you did. I didn't think that Tennessee was an elite team that would make the Elite Eight last year. I started to believe it around early February. I'm curious if you think this Tennessee basketball team at this point in the season is better, worse, and the same. And we'll make that a poll question, update the poll question on Jake Merklinger and George MacIntyre as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
All right, Caleb, do you think this basketball team right now, compared to what you thought at this point in the season, is better, worse, or the same than the Vols were at this point last year? By the way, our poll question, should George MacIntyre or Zach Merklinger get a shot at the Vols starting job? You say both, 69%. Mac should, 9%. Merk should, 3%. Neither. Nico has this. All right, so what do you say, Caleb Calhoun, when it comes to this basketball team compared to mid-January last year?
I would say this basketball team compared to mid-January last year, I would say, and I'm actually changing something I said up until last week. I would have said this basketball team is better. Now I'm saying last year's basketball team is better because last year's basketball team was not capable of an offensive collapse the way that Tennessee had on Tuesday against Florida. That never would have happened with last year's team. And I thought that was in Rick Barnes' rearview mirror. I thought his teams were done doing that. And again, I'm not criticizing losing to Florida. That was a top 10 team on the road that was that barely lost their first game at Kentucky. That's a loss you expect them to have. Losing that way, though, with how bad their offense is, or how bad their offense was, that's the red flag to me. And it still is the red flag, because being capable of those offensive droughts, again, I thought was a thing of the past with Rick Barnes. And the fact that it's returned now fuels your point of Tennessee doesn't have the Dalton Connect who can manufacture points. Now, this team still could be better with the addition of Darlington Dubar, because now, while they don't have like one player to go to who can manufacture points, and I've kind of accepted that because Chaz Lanier can't do it the way I thought, they have Darlington Dubar adds another scoring option for them, meaning it's less likely they go through these offensive droughts or they have another game like this because there's too many options. Someone's got to hit at some point. And so, but until I can be confirmed of that, I need to see them, put it this way, I don't need to see them go win 10 straight games. I need to see them play 10 straight games where there's not an offensive drought like they had against Florida. That's what I need to see.
Yep. I can agree with that. You just can't have that sort of drop-off. And really, is Dubar, I mean, there's two. I like to say there's a most valuable player on a team, and there's a most important player. And I'm going to describe the difference. The most valuable player on, let's say, Tennessee's football team is probably going to be the quarterback, okay? But maybe the most important player that could shift things if he's there or not, we could argue would be Cooper Mays, right?
X Factor, I guess is the way to say it.
X Factor is a good way to say it. Okay, so is Darlington Dubar no doubt the X Factor?
I think at this point he is. If he is an offensive threat the way he's capable of being, then it's a totally different game. Your best example of that, I guess the best way to say it is Michael Jordan was the most valuable player on the Bulls, but the X Factor was Scottie Pippen guarding Magic Johnson in that first finals, wasn't it? And like, even though Michael Jordan was the finals MVP, like they won because Scottie Pippen took Magic Johnson out of the game pretty much, or out of the series. And yeah, so it's kind of like that. I'm with you. And I think Dubar's the X Factor. Chaz Lanier is the best player. He's the most valuable player. This team will go as Darlington Dubar goes. Though, kind of like another great example. Oh, here's a good one. Here's one that comes straight to my mind, Dave. Manu Ginobili with the Spurs. Tim Duncan was their best player consistently. But Dave, their titles hinged on whether or not Manu Ginobili had a good series or not.
It's actually a scary good comparison. Sometimes I hate when you make comparisons but that one's really, really good. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, 2 locations, Executive Park Drive and Kingston Pike, the #1 volume dealer in East Tennessee. That means incredible prices and selection. I'll tell you more after this. More to come, including Tennessee picks up a commitment. How big is that for the Vols? We'll have this day in Tennessee sports history up next as well. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Tell you a little story. Last week, I got a chance to go by the Ted Russell Ford store location on Parkside Drive. They are also on Kingston Pike. Man, I can be a little bit picky with cars. They got everything, and I'm just deciding which Bronco I want. And the customer service I met with Nick was fantastic. It was absolutely unbelievable. No pressure. They just want to give you the perfect vehicle that fits your needs. I mean, he even gave me a cell. I mean, that's the type of service you get. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. If you want to stop at lot after lot and waste precious time, you can do that. But why? Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln are absolutely unbelievable. No, number one volume Ford dealer. They're absolutely incredible. They support the community, and you will be proud to do business with Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. Also, the service specifically Lane. The afternoon walk-in is at either one of their convenient locations. All parts department are open to the do-it-yourselfers and business customers. Wholesales are available. All right, here we go. Caleb Calhoun, as we shift gears a little bit, Tennessee, this day in Tennessee sports history, before we get to a new commitment and how big of an issue is Nico Iamaleava's family moving forward and in the offseason when they wanted a little bit more cash. But let's get to this day in Tennessee sports history, and that is brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Sports Treasures TN. Sports Treasures TN. This day in Tennessee sports history. Caleb, what do you got?
On this day, 10 years ago, Tennessee got its only ranked SEC win of the Donnie Tyndall era. Funny enough, which is very quick.
That was a short era.
Very short era, yeah.
How long did he? 1 year?
1 year. They beat Arkansas 74-69 when Arkansas was ranked number 19. I always wonder, part of me does wonder. Donnie Tyndall as a basketball tactician may have been the best coach Tennessee ever hired.
You know what's funny to me is that I know Tyndall sued the NCAA, right?
Did he sue? I think he just fought the NCAA on their show calls and lost.
Okay, well, I mean, it's surprising to me that Tyndall specifically, because an unfair 10-year show cause, didn't just sue him, because the NCAA doesn't win any cases in court. Maybe he doesn't have the finances to pay for that type of legal support.
Here's where the show calls wasn't recruiting violations with Donnie Tyndall. It was academic fraud. So it's a little bit easier for the NCAA to enforce academic fraud than it is recruiting violations.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. What's our poll question right now?
Right now it is, should George MacIntyre why did you you know what, Dave? You wrote Zach Merklinger. I think you meant Jake Merklinger.
Jake Merklinger. All right. What is it? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Go ahead. What's the poll?
The question is, should George MacIntyre, or who Dave meant to write as Jake Merklinger, get a shot as a Vols starting quarterback?
Just fix that one, because I've got another thing that I want to get to. Anyway, you can fix that, and then we'll get a real read on that. So Tennessee picks up a commitment over the weekend. Maybe not the highest rated guy in the world, but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of times I'll take a high 3-star offensive lineman, especially now that you can run guys, as opposed to another guy that might have a little bit of a, issue or diva type thing. So I'm a big fan of these high 3-star guys to fill out your roster, and sometimes they can eventually turn into fantastic players. So over the weekend, Tennessee already has a couple of commitments, but the Vols now have another commitment from a 3-star offensive lineman. He's not fantastic. He's not great, but let's take a look at him as Tennessee picks up a commitment from, and I think I've looked there.
Baylor School.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. So tell me about Tennessee's newest commitment over the weekend.
Yeah, so Gabriel Osenda out of Baylor School in Chattanooga, which, funny enough, is where Amari Jefferson came out of. So within a week, Tennessee picked up 2 Baylor School kids from Chattanooga. He committed to the Vols over the weekend. He's a 3-star across most services, but he is a 4-star on Rivals. And Dave, I think he's kind of a rising star because, look, Tennessee beat out quite a few schools to land him, most notably Florida and Ole Miss. And Florida, if you've seen them on the recruiting trail, they're recruiting at a high level right now. But also Georgia gave him an offer reportedly. I think LSU gave him an offer. So he was fielding quite a few elite offers, and he's got a great size at 6'7", 330. So this guy could be an underrated offensive lineman that Tennessee's just scouting quickly. He comes from Canada originally. So my guess, when I see the size and I see the ratings versus who's offering him is, and I've seen this before, he's a 3-star because he's raw, but could be a 4 or 5-star if he develops. And I think that's a really good type of commitment that Tennessee wants to be able to land. It was one they needed. They want to reestablish the pipeline into Chattanooga because honestly, they're not doing great there right now. I mean, yes, they got Amari Jefferson back, which is a big deal, but the prize out of Baylor School on Saturday was Cam Sparks, who was a 4-star athlete, 2-way athlete, and he committed to Virginia Tech. But again, that could be like his top offers were Arkansas, Auburn, Chattanooga was in there. So weren't as high as offers as Gabriel Osenda. So I don't know how you look at it, Dave. I actually look more at who's offering than I do what the star rating is. I don't know if you go the same route I do on that.
Well, I do. And so do the recruiting analysts. I mean, I think it would take a pretty egotistical recruiting analyst for one of the recruiting services to say they know more than the average college football coach, right?
That's what they're doing with. So Cam Sparks was a 4-star on 247 composite, and Gabriel Osenda was a 3-star, even though Osenda was fielding way better offers.
Well, they're just behind. I mean, those numbers just have to change and register. I usually give them 2 or 3 months before they move. But just my premise of I love the high 3-star offensive lineman. What do you make of that?
Oh, I do too. As a matter of fact, offensive linemen, I care less about recruiting rankings for offensive linemen. Now, there's exceptions. Darnell Wright, David Sanders Jr. probably. But for the most part, I care about their measurables, their quickness, and also just how fundamentally sound they are. And I know that sounds like cheesy. Oh, the fundamentals matter. But honestly, offensive line, a lot of it, offensive line is way more about understanding leverage than anything else, isn't it?
Yep,
and
it is. That's why Scott Wells was one of the best offensive linemen I've ever seen, and he wasn't nearly as physically gifted as the Cozy Colemans of the world. Yes.
That's also why Iowa and Wisconsin lead the way with NFL offensive linemen, and none of them are 5-stars coming out, but they all wrestled in high school. So they all know exactly how to use leverage when they get to the pros.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at Tennessee's classes. Gabriel Osenda is the latest addition to the 2026 class, which is coming together quite nicely. An update brought to you by Double D Piping Sabat.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right. I think personally that Tennessee's 2026 class has the potential, not just in who they have committed, but others that I'm hearing that are close to committing, to be Tennessee's first elite class. So I define elite class by top 5. So right now they have 5-star quarterback Faison Brandon. He is committed. Tyreek King out of, by the way, Brandon's from Greensboro, North Carolina. Tyreek King from Catholic is a 3-star wide receiver. Brandon Anderson, an offensive lineman, 3-star receiver from Kennesaw, Georgia. Carson Sneed from Nashville, Tennessee, is a 3-star tight end. 3-star Gabriel Osenda's offensive tackle. Tyron Evans, who recently committed, wide receiver, 3-star from North Carolina. Tyson Bacon, 3-star from Hoover. Braylon Outlaw from Pike Road, Alabama, is a 3-star as well. I think it's 5th in the nation. I think you've got a good base, and I think that's what you want at this point, based off a lot of years of covering recruiting. And now's the time where you start to take your shot. You know what I mean? You've got yourself, let's say, 2nd and 1 at the 40-yard line. Okay, everything's going good. This is when you start to take shots at the big time guys, and you try to land them by this summer.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's They have 8. You're right. They have 8 commitments. They have 2 linemen now, by the way, not to mention the 2 in the previous class with David Sanders. I think they're finally getting the linemen who they want that they can actually build their team around. We're finally going to start seeing Josh Heupel, I think probably in 2025, start some guys that he recruited out of high school. Right. It's about, and if it doesn't happen, then there's a big red flag. So obviously Faison Brandon's a star. So on composite rankings right now, this is the 5th highest rated class in the nation. And Dave, 2nd in the SEC. Texas A&M's number 1 and Tennessee's number 2. Now that's obvious. It's so early. I mean, it's not even national signing day for 2025 yet. So like, this is obviously going to change as time goes on, and Tennessee's going to have to keep rolling. But you are right. I think they are building the type of class they want to build. I think, and I've been saying this though for a while, and I want to know what you think about this. I think Tennessee, because we talked with Will West on Friday about NIL, and their NIL strategy maybe hurts them on the front end. But I think Tennessee has an NIL strategy on the back end that I guess keeps the players they want together more than other programs. And so I don't know what you think about that, but
well, that's good and bad, though. Yes, I've been told that Tennessee wants the play for pay model instead of the pay for play model. Does that make sense? They don't want to get caught in a situation where they owe Nico $2 million a year. They want to get in a situation where George MacIntyre shows up on campus and makes a decent amount of money in NIL, but ultimately you give him raises and more money based off of what he does on the field. That's the goal. The problem is that could actually hurt the Vols, Caleb. I'm not sure that it helps the Vols.
On the front end, but not really the back end. What I think with their NIL model is this. Their NIL model is like you're shopping for a home. Their NIL model is they're going to take the home that maybe needs a lot of updates on the outside, but is on strong, solid foundation. You know what I mean? Great bones, and it's not going to collapse under its weight. Whereas I think a lot of other people may take the newer development that looks real flashy up front. Someone really fixed it up to sell it, but the foundation's messed up, and you don't know that till you get inside. Because I think Ole Miss is that home, by the way.
Fair enough. Yes.
And so I think that Tennessee I think their NIL model it's more focused on on the idea that players who are valuable to them won't ever want to leave. And honestly, to this point, I don't think Tennessee's under Josh Heupel has really lost a player that they that they cared deeply if they lost. Put it that way.
I don't think they were real happy about Squirrel.
I'm telling you, Squirrel was about Boo. I'm telling you right now, Squirrel was about Boo Carter.
I'm not buying that. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Life is better when you see better. CCTeyes.com, CCTeyes.com. Also want to thank our friends at Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations. Your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat with 2Tsmortgage.com. Chat with 2Tsmortgage.com. Do me a favor. Hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to this point, please go ahead and do so. Turn the notifications on. We've got a major announcement coming up down the pike that we're excited about. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. It is banksandjones.com as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's #1 Ford volume dealers. Stay tuned, because coming up next, if you'll give me just a short break, we're going to tell you why Nico's family might well be an issue. And Rick Barnes benches Chaz Lanier. All that coming up 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
That would be incredible. For camping, tailgating, the options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC,
Ginger
we offer
Power.
top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Talked a little bit Tennessee basketball already. George MacIntyre as well. Talked some Nico. One topic with him, but I want to get into another one, and I've heard some things that are not very encouraging. It has nothing to do with Nico. I think he's a great guy. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's an issue with who is representing him, and I think that's having a negative effect on the program. Work Truck's all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle available. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Truck saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Process quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with an applied work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. They're phenomenal. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks. That's a fact. Service industry Work Trucks. Remember Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have downtown Birmingham and also Clinton Highway in Knoxville. WorkTrucksLLC.com. They will absolutely make sure you have the perfect vehicle you have to have. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. Caleb, we're going to get into the Nico family issue here momentarily, but I thought that Rick Barnes, to be a 70-year-old man, was so ahead of the curve when he said over the weekend that Chaz Lanier gets paid to shoot. I know that he never thought in his entire career prior to 5 years ago when NIL came around that he would ever say that. I just thought it sounded super cool. I don't know if it motivates him or not, but I'll tell you what, if I'm hosting this show and somebody says, you get paid to do this, do a better job, then I'm probably going to up my game a little bit. And you don't say something like that unless he's had bad practices or questionable effort. You don't just say it for missing shots. At least I don't think you do. What did you make of the comment?
Let me play the comment for you guys real quickly. This was, so for those who didn't watch, Rick Barnes benched Chaz Lanier at the beginning of the second half. And I'm going to play the comment, and this is exactly what he said, because it's actually, the way he said it makes it even sound better. So here we go, pulling it up now. Here's what he says.
I took him out first play of the second half because he didn't shoot the ball. I mean, that play was designed for that shot. And I told him, I said, if you're not going to do what you're getting paid to do, you can sit over here because he is getting paid to do that.
So, for those who don't know, there was a play designed for Chaz Lanier to shoot the ball at the start of the second half, and Chaz Lanier got it, and he didn't shoot it. And so Rick Barnes pulled him. And he said, yeah, you're not going to do what you're getting paid to do. You're going to sit. This is what NIL needs to be about, by the way. We have said from the start, I said I'm all for players getting paid. I'm also for more accountability for players because they're getting paid. And
could you see a situation that there are incentives? Like if you average over 24 points, you get an extra $100,000. Like if you score 10 touchdowns, you get an extra $100,000, because I think that could happen. And I think that would be awful, because all that would do is breed selfishness in the locker room. The first school that does that, they better keep it under wraps and not tell everybody else. Because if a running back is out there in the fourth quarter because he wants to be, because he wants to hit his bonus, that's not going to sit well with his teammates.
Yeah, and it's even worse in basketball, because if you say you got to score this many points, well, the player has the chance to ball hog when they do that.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah, so yeah, you don't want to do it that way. But I mean, this was one. Okay, I want to say, just from a Tennessee perspective, Dave, real quick, isn't it kind of a red flag when your primary scorer, and I'm kind of coming around to your side with Chaz Lanier versus Dalton Connect now, because your primary scorer should want the ball to score every time, shouldn't he?
Yes.
So
and I'm glad we got to that, because that should be the biggest takeaway from that statement. You don't pass up shots
that are designed for you. When the coach, yeah, like, I'm not saying you be like Scottie Pippen and don't go into the game when a play is not designed for you, but I am saying that, like, if you're a scorer, you're the leading scorer on the team, you are brought in to score, and you're the best scorer in the SEC, and there's a play designed for you to score, guess what? You should score, or you should attempt to score. You shouldn't pass it up.
Well, do you think, let's put it this way, unless like three people started defending him, do you think Dalton Connect ever passed up an offensive opportunity, whether it was a shot or driving it to the basket? Do you think Chris Lofton ever passed up an open shot unless he was guarded? I mean, unless you're guarded really well, and he wasn't on that play, that is your job. And I would rather, you remember Trooper Taylor? He used to always say, a former Tennessee assistant coach, he said he'd always rather say whoa than go. I don't want to have to tell a guy to shoot. Like in football, I don't want to have to tell a guy to go hard. I'd rather him hit somebody late every once in a while in practice than be soft in practice. Passing up shots as a shooter and a scorer that is needed is soft. It's just soft.
It is. It is. It's not a mentality you want. And now you see why Tennessee couldn't manufacture buckets against Florida, because it's like, yeah, you need Chaz Lanier to say, everybody clear out, I'm going to take over. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be selfish all the time, but it's like, it has to be specific moments. Like, I'm sure you remember, Dave, when the 97 finals, when Michael Jordan basically told Phil, Steve Kerr is going to be open every time because they're collapsing on me. But like, that was like, Michael would drive to the lane and Utah would send 4 guys into the lane to collapse. So he knew Steve Kerr was wide open.
Right. And you have to remember, that was after establishing himself for a decade, or about 10 years, 8 years maybe, when he won his first championship in the NBA. So it's not as if he was kind of a ball hog in the beginning, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so he kind of learned that, and he knew that in that situation, Steve Kerr would be open. It's basically, you know what it's like too? Have you ever seen a quarterback? I've seen quarterbacks do it, call running plays, but like, could you ever imagine a quarterback saying we should run, telling a coach we should run our way down the field for a game-winning drive?
I don't have as much of a problem with that, because like a Peyton Manning, if he knows they've got an advantage on the front end, I don't think he's going to just want to throw it because he wants to throw it. I just think he's going to want to win. Right.
But if the coach tells you we need to throw the ball and the quarterback says, no, I want to run it, let's take it out of my hands, that would be crazy, right?
Yeah, I see the point you're going at. I think that's a little bit more multi-layered than a play design where you're supposed to shoot. But I see where you're going.
Okay, yeah, that's where I'm leaning. Because you're right. They did, the Colts come back against the Patriots in 2007, the AFC title. They did run it for a touchdown. That was Tony Dungy, actually, and Peyton Manning together both agreed they should, and Marvin. But yeah, the point to this is there is a red flag when there's a play designed for a scorer and he doesn't want to take the shot. So that's what really stands out. And I'm glad Rick Barnes said that you get paid to do that. Because look, what he's basically saying is they pay Chaz Lanier to be a scorer. Rick Barnes, and by the way, this also says that Rick Barnes has an understanding of NIL that goes deeper than a lot of other places, which is that he says, and he's old school, but he's clearly pro NIL, but he's pro accountability with the NIL. And I think he's knowing how to use it as a motivational tool. That was a very good situation. And I know people, because we've seen it on the message board and I've heard it before. I know a lot of people aren't as crazy. Rick Barnes has always kind of been one to kind of call out his players publicly in press conferences, but that's just been Rick Barnes' style. And for the record, if you're a player who goes to play for Rick Barnes, you know he's going to do that. And
my understanding is it sits okay with the players because he oftentimes tells them that a couple of times before he goes public with it. So it's like the last emphasis. And Philip Fulmer did that a lot through the media. What you don't want to do is give one message to your players and give another message to the media. That will lose you respect from players in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a very good point. And also Rick Barnes will back his players a lot of times too. If they struggle and they get ripped in the media, he'll defend them too if he thinks it's too hard. He just says what he thinks when it comes to his players. So yeah, I think that I think this is a great move by Rick Barnes, and it really shows the new era of college sports. I'm glad someone said it.
I thought it was cool. I'll tell you what, Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off. Now, in all fairness, yes, he is supposed to shoot that shot, Caleb, but I don't begrudge. I will defend him to some extent. They're trying to get Darlene Stone-Dubar back in rhythm. He just had a cold game earlier. So I understand the mentality, at least, of probably passing up a shot that you're supposed to take. Not defending him, but I kind of understand where the young man's mindset might have been.
Possibly, but I think the thing that's hitting me is, and you saw this down the stretch of this game, it's a little disturbing that Zakai Ziegler is the one who took over, not Chaz Lanier late. And so, like, no, I think you and I would both agree Zakai Ziegler may be the mentally toughest player in college basketball. But it seems
I don't know why you say that when he's got 5 or 6 plays when he dribbles right to the defense.
Yeah, but I didn't say mental toughness always means making the smartest play. Okay. Kobe's the mentally toughest basketball player of all time. He's still made a lot of dumb plays. So
now we're comparing Zakai Ziegler to Kobe Bryant.
No, we're not. I'm saying that Kobe took a lot of dumb shots consistently all the time. And so Zakai is the mentally toughest in the sense of he's never scared of the moment. The moment never gets too big for him at all. And I noticed that they go to him to kind of take over games late if they need a bucket to keep things in control more than they go to Chaz Lanier. And that kind of stands out a little bit in a negative way. So this could be an overall issue with Chaz Lanier, man. And it's something you never know. You could see somebody play very well throughout a period of time in basketball, but you never know how they match up when things get tight a little bit. And this was our first foray into it last week. And yeah, it's a little bit concerning, the situation Chaz Lanier's in. And you have to ask, you have to start asking questions on that.
I agree. Let's play a little bit of hot or cold, and it is brought to you by our friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning. That's cityheatandair.com. So I'm going to throw some players at you on Tennessee's basketball team right now. So we're going to break down who's hot, who's cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Again, 50 years in East Tennessee, integrity matters. All right, Caleb, so let's go ahead and do that. The first grade I'm going to ask for, whether or not they are hot or cold, is going to be, are you hot or cold on Chaz Lanier?
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Okay, Caleb, the way I want to do this is I want you to tell me, compared to the beginning of the season, are you hot or cold on the following players? Chaz Lanier.
Oh, hot. Compared to the beginning of the season, I'm cold on Chaz Lanier compared to last week, but not to the beginning of the season. I didn't think he'd be this good.
I agree with you.
That's hot.
All right. Darlene Stone Dubar.
I am now officially hot. I was cold up until last week, but I am now hot. I think he's going to live up to what he was expected to do in SEC play.
I can't roll with you on that one yet.
Hater.
No.
How's a haterade taste?
It tastes fantastic. I can't go with you on that one quite yet. Okay, Tennessee is a basketball team as a whole compared to what you thought at the beginning of the season now that you've seen a couple of months.
Cold. Because I thought this was Rick Barnes' best team that he ever had. And I thought it was going to keep the offensive droughts as a thing of the past.
Okay, well, this is an expectations thing. I actually think different.
That's hot.
I think they're better than what I thought at the preseason. So it's not that we both know how good they are now, but it's what we thought at the beginning.
Yeah, put it this way, and the biggest reason I'm cold, I'll just say it, is Jemai Mashak. He is such a liability on offense that it's a problem. It's becoming a problem. He's basically, I'm a Grizzly fan, you're a Celtics fan, so you remember him, Dave. He's like Tony Allen on offense. And I mean, like, he is, nobody respects his offensive game, and it's causing problems for the rest of Tennessee that nobody respects him when he has the ball.
Pretty true. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less, not Banks & Jones. Live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. And they are the exclusive provider and studio sponsor of Off the Hook Sports. If you want a fantastic vehicle with a great price and a smile on your face as you drive off the lot, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Kingston Park and Topside Drive. Nico's family, how big of a concern is it? I'll give you some insight next. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll do that, Coop, as we are off and rolling. This Nico cat, his family, how big of a concern is it? We'll get into that right now.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, here's what we reported over the weekend and actually this morning. And we talked about, and Will West of the Sports Animal had also reported it. It's not Nico Iamaleava. Great kid, not demanding more money at the line of scrimmage or anything like that. But his family, we've been told father or agent or whatever, are doing what fathers and agents do. And what is that? Look out for their son. There's a concern on their behalf that Iamaleava was not throwing the ball enough last year. There was too much 12 personnel. I can say this definitively. I'm reporting this, and I've reported on Off the Hook Sports, and that they up and wanted more money. Caleb, how concerned are you about this and that it could become something? Because I don't want to get into whose fault it was. But I can tell you that the whole Jonathan Crompton's first 3.5 years that were a debacle, Caleb, part of that was because the family and Philip Fulmer did not have a good relationship. And I can tell you when David Cutcliffe walked in the door in 2006 that he really didn't even want to play Crompton, partly because that he thought that BJ Coleman was more, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say coachable, but I guess that's the word I'm looking for. He thought that BJ Coleman would adapt to an offense easier, and I think attitude was a big part of that. Not to say, again, that Jonathan Crompton had a bad attitude, but he went through a lot of ups and downs, and his family was upset. You're a dad now. That's how dads act. And I don't know that that's going to change, but it is your quarterback you've already promised $2 million to. So a year. Now that's gone up significantly. So how concerned should Tennessee fans be about Nico's dad and Nico's family, Nico's representation?
I think very, and I'm going to go into Larry's. By the way, you're short selling that. I actually, that was the 1 year as a student reporter I was covering Tennessee, and I was a little bit tied in. David Cutcliffe didn't just think BJ Coleman was more coachable. He was in love with BJ Coleman.
In love. Absolutely.
Like he thought, and by the way, I think he was right. BJ Coleman actually got drafted by the Packers. Funny enough. So BJ Coleman, he has NFL money. And if he had played under David Cutcliffe, he might be an NFL starter still today. Honestly, he had an insanely strong arm. But I think it's very concerning when family gets involved. And let's be honest. And Dave, and guys, we're not just speculating on this, okay? Dave has multiple sources that have told him, and Will West told us on the show Friday, that Nico Iamaleava's family is getting involved. So it's pretty much confirmed that that's happening, right, Dave? More than anything else.
And I'll take it a step further. It's not just demanding more money. I've heard he's been griping after games when Tennessee didn't throw the ball enough, and he's done so in front of some prospects, because the prospects and the players will mingle together in this room down next to the interview facility. So that to me is disconcerting too. I will say this about the Cromptons. To my knowledge, even when they were most frustrated, they didn't try to spew venom to undermine the program. They just thought their son wasn't being treated fairly. Nico's family, to my understanding and based off sources, has taken it a step further.
Yeah, and this is really bad. And it's very concerning because
and
it's
I'm going to tell you why I don't think it is after you're done. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to tell you why I think it is. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story on this. I was in DC when the RG3 rage happened in 2012. You were covering recruiting up here, Dave, right? So
yeah, I happened to be driving from just coincidentally Baltimore, DC to Baltimore when everybody was celebrating that draft pick.
Yeah. Remember, he was Rookie of the Year. For those who don't know the story, RG3 was Rookie of the Year. Mike Shanahan adopts the spread offense in the NFL and works it to perfection. RG3 makes the playoffs, shatters his leg in the playoffs. What happened in the offseason? I don't know if people know the story. RG3 walked in with his dad. RG3's dad went above Mike Shanahan to Dan Snyder's office and said, we want RG3 to not run anymore. We want him to be Peyton Manning. We need Mike Shanahan to turn him into a pocket passer. And Mike Shanahan basically was like, you can't do that right now. You're not good enough. You have to do that. Well, RG3's dad would talk to Dan Snyder to undercut Shanahan and the rest of the team. And it turned the whole team against RG3.
I don't think there's going to be that issue. Nobody's going to call an athletic director. Dan Snyder should have said, you're just a player. I'm not taking your call. And that's exactly what coaches should do in college. Here's why I'm not concerned about it, Caleb, is they've sewn him up financially, I've been told, for this year. Want a little bit of a raise, got a raise, great. And they've sewn him up, and he's good for 2025. And at that point, if he's elite, I don't think they'll have a problem with giving him more money. If he's elite, he might go to the NFL. If he's just okay, then you've got options. You've got Merklinger, who I know we don't have a lot of confidence in, but surely he would be somewhat competent after 2 full seasons in college football. And then you've got MacIntyre, who I believe is incredibly talented. So I'm not worried about it because I don't think Nico will throw in the towel. I don't think he's going to look at his financial statements and say, I made this. I really want to make this. I'm not going to practice as hard. My bigger concern is just creating a negative space because Tennessee wins games and prides itself on what?
Oh, they pride themselves on culture. Yeah.
Right. If they don't keep that, sorry, they're not as talented as the Ohio States and the Georgias of the world. And chances are most years they won't be. So they have to have an edge. And usually that comes from either culture, that comes from you got hot in recruiting, you got the right guys, better evaluation, or an elite quarterback like a Mike Vick at Virginia Tech back in the day, which elevated their program. But Caleb, if they don't have that, which I don't know that they do, culture is the most important thing. It should be on Josh Heupel's list of daily goals.
But this is where you're all right about but this is something that could undermine it. And I want to give you a quick example on another end, just from Tennessee's perspective, on something that I think, and Dave, you covered the 98 team, but I think something that helped build that culture. When Peyton Manning was at Tennessee, I mean, Peyton Manning was the most like the legend, SEC legend's son, basically. But you know the story. Archie Manning did not want to be involved with the coaches at all. And he pretty much let the coaches run the show for Peyton Manning. And I got to be honest, I'd love to ask a few former players about this, but don't you think the fact that Archie Manning wasn't involved on Peyton Manning's behalf and made Peyton Manning just another one of the players resonated well with the rest of the Tennessee team and helped build that culture? Because he didn't get special treatment. And, now we know people will be like, well, Archie, helped finagle Eli to go to the right team. Now, Archie wants his kids to go play for the right NFL franchises, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to get involved when they're playing. That's how to be the perfect type of dad, right?
Yes.
Which is put your kid in the best situation, but then let the coaches coach once they're in that situation. What you're telling me Nico's dad is doing, this is like a problem with Little League coaches, I know, all across the country.
It's very Little League. But it's very Little League. And like, I know a lot of college coaches that would just hang up the phone if a parent called because they had them tied into the scholarship and they couldn't leave. But NIL and transfer portals, what's changed this? And you can leverage a lot more than you used to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so, getting involved like this, I'm sorry, this level of parental involvement never ends well. This reminds me more than anything. You brought up the Crompton family. The Crompton family at least kept it quiet. This reminds me of Jalen Hurts' family more than anything. Jalen Hurts' mom, couldn't stop getting on Twitter and, undercutting Alvin Kamara pretty much. And started tweeting about how bad of a teammate he was and things like that. I mean, I look at somebody like Jalen Hurts and I'm like, his whole NFL future was sabotaged by his family's arrogance and self-centeredness. And, I don't think that'll happen to Nico, but I mean, I put it this way. I hope at the very least, Josh Heupel's not just saying whatever you need, Mr. Nico's father, we got. I hope at some point he can come in and be like, hey, look, Nico is this and we got to do this. And so, but we're going to have to see how that plays out.
Given his play last year, what are the chances that Nico is around in 2026 at Tennessee, and we never dreamed that would be a possibility. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. And I'll remind you that Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is the #1 Ford dealer in East Tennessee. So get to that in 60 seconds.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible for camping, tailgating. The options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
If you had a better mortgage payment, will Nico Iamaleava be a ball in 2026? Because I know you didn't think that was even a possibility earlier last year, or neither of us thought it was a possibility when he signed for 2 million G's. But now I'm wondering.
I'm going to say 0% chance.
Okay.
You ready why?
I'm ready why.
What if he's elite? He's going straight to the NFL. But if he's not elite, Arch Manning's about to start this year. We know that Arch Manning reset kind of the market for Nico to a certain degree, where he's like, if Arch Manning's making this, I want to make this. Arch Manning's going to command more money at the end of the year. Nico's going to come back asking for more money at the end of 2025. If he's not elite, the coaches are going to say, well, we got this guy, George MacIntyre. Go ahead, walk. I think they're going to let Nico walk at that point to say, you're not worth the extra money when we got this other quarterback that I think they're going to fall in love with when he's on campus. And so I don't think they're scared to – I think they were scared to let Nico walk this year, but I don't think they're scared to let Nico walk at the end of 2025.
I tend to agree with you. And I got called out. I went to the gym one time, and I said that George MacIntyre reminded me of Patrick Mahomes. And, of course, I hate comparisons, and I'm not saying that he's Patrick Mahomes, okay? But if you watch his – and I would like for you to watch it this evening if you haven't already, Caleb. He has some innate ability to throw the ball at a lot of different arm levels. He has an innate ability to avoid sacks when it looks like he should be down. I think there could be something special about the MacIntyre kid. I mean, the special thing with Nico is his accuracy in his arm, right?
Right.
Well, I think MacIntyre is not as good there, but better in an awful lot of regards when it comes to game presence, when it comes to his ability to avoid pressure. And I would not be stunned at all if he were the starting quarterback in 2026. I just wonder if he'll get a shot this upcoming season. I mean, that's not typically Josh Heupel's style. He likes to stick with a guy. But one thing you said about culture earlier is, could that negatively affect culture? No. If you're winning, culture's fine. I mean, you could start anybody. If you're winning, culture's fine. I mean, they stuck by Joe Milton early on before they realized, and they knew that he wasn't as good as Hendon Hooker. You want to talk some hoops, Caleb?
Let's talk a little more hoops.
Can't imagine anybody better to do that than Steve Hamer, the former Vol, who is fantastic. Steve Hamer, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. I hope that y'all are off to a really, really good start to this Monday morning. I hope you guys had some great snow days over the weekend, got to build a snowman and just kind of hang out, watch some good basketball. But, man, bounce back game for sure this past Saturday.
Yeah, here's what I did. I slipped on the ice, fell, and dislocated my shoulder. What about that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there anyone is there potential litigation anywhere? Because
I actually am considering my own intelligence, or lack thereof. I thought to myself, just don't slip or you'll fall, because it was ice.
Wow.
And went down, arm hanging out. And I'll just tell you this real quick, Steve, because you probably think I'm soft. but had them pop it in with no anesthesia, leaned over to put my tennis shoes on it, popped back out, and I had them pop it back in again. No anesthesia, nothing, no local.
Wow. Wow.
The guy goes, you're one tough son of a. I'm not even joking. All right. What did you think? It was not great. It does not feel good right now, but it's not about me. It's about Steve Hamer. Steve,
wow.
What did you think about the Vols bounce back on Saturday? Were you happy? Pleased? Do you think it was adequate?
Yeah, I'm pleased with it. Look, say what you will. The Florida game, going back to that particular debacle, was not good in many different facets of the game. I think it set basketball back 100 years, statistically thinking. They didn't shoot the ball well from the perimeter, from the mid-range, from the interior, from the charity stripe. And oh, by the way, we got out toughened. We didn't have the sort of physicality that it took to win in an environment like that. So just from top to bottom, it just was not a great performance from Tennessee basketball. Now, you can do one of two things, right? You can sulk. You can kind of lick your wounds and say, man, I don't know if this team is quite good enough to make that run. We got another game in Austin, Texas. Oh, by the way, they're 0-2. They've lost their home opener in the SEC. They're trying to get out the schneid. They're desperate for a win. We're going to have the same type of tough environment. Or you can say, guys, we gotta circle the wagons ourselves. And we got to play like the more desperate team, and we got to go into Austin and win against our little brothers. And I think we did that. We did the latter. We did just enough. Was it perfect by any stretch of the imagination? Absolutely not. Are there some things that we still got to shore up? Yes, but did an adequate job of going down there, being prepared, having the right mindset, and coming out of there with a victory. So I'm very, very pleased with what I saw Saturday.
So, Steve, do you want me to ask you about the concerning sign for me on Saturday or the positive first? Positive or negative?
Let's go negative first, because I want to end on a positive.
Yeah, just like a separated shoulder, that's the negative. Getting it put back in is the positive.
So, all right, let's go negative. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. I'm starting to see a red flag that Chaz Lanier is, even though he's a scorer, he's not an assassin. I mean, we know the story of Rick Barnes took him out because he passed up a shot on a play that was designed for him at the beginning of the second half. And when the game got tight at the end of the half, at the end of the game, they went to Zakai Ziegler to take over more than Chaz Lanier. And I'll just give you a quick thing. I'm a big Grizzly fan. The same time this game was happening, Memphis beat Minnesota in the NBA. Ja Morant had a horrible game, but he's the one who hit the final 3 shots to win the game for Memphis. Are you nervous that Chaz Lanier doesn't have that assassin's mentality that a scorer needs?
I am not, and I'll tell you why. The last 2 games, obviously, Florida, tough environment. Chaz goes 3 for 16. Doesn't shoot the ball well by any stretch of the imagination. Saturday night, Chaz goes 3 for 11, whatever that is. Doesn't shoot the ball well at all. Hit our first 3 and then was a non-factor for the most part after that. I think he went 2 for 4 from the 3-point line. Here's why I will give you a reason to think otherwise. Being around Chaz in the very limited time that I've been around Chaz, I've kind of gotten, I can kind of read people, right? One of the things that's readily evident about Chaz Lanier is that he is unfazed. Now, Coach Barnes took him out of the game very strategically coming out of that second half because he didn't shoot the ball. And this is what he's paid to do, right? Shoot the basketball. Chaz was unfazed by that, meaning that, he's drawn the ire from Coach Barnes day in and day out in practice. It goes on and on and on. But here's what I expect to happen on Wednesday night. I expect Chaz to come out and get up about 20 shots because Chaz is not going to shy away. Okay. He's not going to say, you know what, it's maybe this is still Zakai's team and maybe I should defer. No. Chaz is a shooter and shooters are going to shoot. The main problem right now is that when you are the target of every other team's defensive schemes, it's going, if you don't readily pick it up quickly, it may take you a few games to go, well, okay, all right, this is the scout. This is how teams are going to play me coming off of a curl. This is how teams are going to play me coming off of a fade screen. So now I need to pick up my game. I need to adjust. And I think Chaz is capable of doing that. And I think you're going to see maybe next game, maybe the game after that, but all of a sudden you're going to see Chaz reemerge to the guy that you saw against Austin Peay, against MTSU, against the Montanas, where he's going to get his shots off and he's going to get some good looks and he's going to knock them down. So I tend to think that he may not be that assassin just yet, but give it some time. He's going to figure it out, and he's going to get to where we all think that he can be.
Caleb,
So
I know you want to jump into Lady Vols, but let me ask this. Is Darlington Dubar the X factor? I mean, I feel like we know where we get from Igor and Chaz and Zakai Ziegler, excuse me. I mean, I feel like I know what Tennessee's going to get from almost every player except for Darlene Stone Dubar. And I know he had personal issues early on, but if he raises his game to an elite level, and he played really well on Saturday, how much better does that make the Vols?
Tremendously better. You know, I made a point to Bob Kessling when Darlene Stone Dubar checked into the game for the first time the other night in Austin, Texas. I said that Darlene Stone Dubar, in my opinion, was going to have a big night. And Bob very quickly retorted with, "Why do you say that?" And I said, Darlene Stone is going to bring a certain level of physicality to the game. He's going to rebound the basketball. And I think that with his experience, albeit he played at Hofstra, we know that. With his experience, I don't think that this is going to phase him. I think he is going to come in here. He's going to knock down a three. And I think this is going to be his style of basketball game. Sure enough, it came to fruition. Now, look, I'm not a soothsayer. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not any of that. But I can read that game of basketball enough to know that Dubar was going to come in and have an immediate impact in what he did. He knocked down 2 threes, had a huge putback dunk, told the crowd to, hey, settle down here. But he can be that X factor. He is just the type of guy that could come in, give you perimeter shooting, which we are struggling with right now, right? We're kind of struggling. We're middle of the road in the SEC in terms of 3-point percentage. So we're kind of scuffling a little bit from there. But he can come in and knock down the three. He can rebound. He can play defense. And he gives you that physical inside presence that sometimes working. A real tough guy. And, impose his will if so. I think that he can see basketball moving forward.
Good stuff. Caleb, what'd you have?
Sorry, my mic was muted. Very rookie mistake on my end.
Oh my gosh. I mean, come on. Since COVID, we shouldn't be having any more muted mics.
I know, right? Okay, so Steve, do you think Darlene Stone Dubar, I was very high on him starting the year. I know it took him a minute to pick up Rick Barnes' defense, and he had a personal issue, then he got hurt. Do you think with all that behind him, do you think that Saturday is the start of a trend, not just a one-off?
I think so. Obviously, to play meaningful minutes in Coach Barnes' system, you got to do one thing, and that's play solid defense. And I think the more in shape Darlene Stone Dubar gets in terms of his overall conditioning, the more he's going to be able to play solid defense, which is going to lead to playing more meaningful minutes. So with Darling Stone moving forward, it's really a matter of, can he get enough playing time? Can he carve out enough playing time? Can he get himself in the right conditioning to where he can play extended period of time, long minutes? Can he do those things? And if he can be a guy that can be counted on during the stretches of the game in which they're most important. And man, I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but he played his rear end off on both ends of the floor this past Saturday night. And I think when the film, I think they're watching film right now. I think the film will tell the tale as to why Darling Stone Dubar needs more playing time. By far his best game of the year. And I think that given all of his skills, I think he is that guy to help to take Tennessee to where they want to go.
Yep. And especially when the outside shot isn't shooting, he seems like a guy who can do some maybe different things. I think that's the one deficiency that Chaz Lanier has when we compare him to Dalton Connect, right? I mean, he's just not going to finish around the basket as well.
I completely agree. We often saw Dalton Connect have his way with he had the uncanny, the knack for getting around a defender and just going up and just using the athleticism and rising up above and dunking with two hands. Well, you really haven't seen that all that much with Chaz Lanier. In limited sample size, right? Chaz Lanier has the ability to get around a defender, but he oftentimes tries to go up with one hand, and he gets fouled or gets blocked or whatever. So there is a difference there. But Chaz, again, for his lack of percentage-wise in terms of shooting the ball well the last couple of games, as long as he is still the focal point of defenses in our league moving forward, that, believe it or not, can be a really, really good thing for every other player on Tennessee's basketball team. Because when Chaz comes off of a curl screen and he's rising up to shoot, more times than not, you got a big guy that's hedging on a screen, you got a guard trying to get over top, and Chaz is smart enough to either continue up in that shooting motion or dump it off to somebody that's wide open. So I think that's going to pay dividends down the stretch. But, for my money, Chaz, he's got the ultimate green light. Look, nobody ever had to tell Steve Hamer, hey, shoot the ball. Nobody ever told me that, right? If you don't shoot the ball, Steve Hamer, you're coming out of the game. So Chaz is in that same ilk, man. He's just got to go ahead and continue to shoot the ball. Shooters are going to shoot. He's going to shoot out of this slump, and we're going to be just fine.
All right, Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. I'm going to ask you this, Steve. Darling Stone Dubar is as important as Chaz Lanier.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial.
All right, Steve, Darling Stone Dubar, is he as important as Chaz Lanier?
It's a really good question. Darling Stone Dubar is not as important as Chaz Lanier. And I'll tell you why. Chaz Lanier is your scorer. Darling Stone Dubar is your tough guy. He's going to bring, again, a level of physicality. Chaz is not going to do that. Now, Darling Stone Dubar is going to be a defender. He's going to to be the guy that is one of those glue guys, if you will. If you don't have Chad, it's just not going to happen because Chaz Lanier, he does so much pressure on Zakai, puts more pressure on Igor. It puts more pressure on the team, and it's got to be a score. They don't necessarily need him to be that facilitator. They don't need him to be a great rebounder. They need him to score. That's the number one thing that separates him and Donaldson DeBar.
Great stuff, Steve. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. We're excited to say that Steve will be a part of the program each and every Monday, talking Vols. Have an absolute blessed day. I can't tell you how excited I am to work with you during basketball season.
Man, you guys are absolutely fantastic. Dave and Caleb, man, honored to join y'all.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Steve Hamer.
Thanks. Have a good one, Steve.
Love that guy. Also, former color commentator of the Tennessee Thundercats, in case you're wondering. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, Kingston Pike, and Parkside Drive, #1 volume dealer in East Tennessee. Coming up, Lady Boss, as I'm really growing fond of Kim Caldwell. More after this, again, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios in Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive, represented by Banks & Jones. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I'm gonna push back the Lady Vols a little bit, if you don't mind. Talk some college football playoff action. They're never going to say it, but the college football playoff committee, everyone involved, if you would have told them the final two teams that are going to play in the college football playoff, they would have not been happy. You exclude basically 3/4 of the nation. I don't know what the television ratings are going to be, Caleb, for the final, the championship game, but what have they been leading up to this is we have not seen great football, and we have not seen, I mean, Notre Dame's a big name, Ohio State's a big name, but I get it. But you had Texas and you had Penn State. Just, I don't know, the whole grouping didn't seem like they were all that exciting to me.
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw the stats, but the Penn State Notre Dame game drew 17.8 million viewers Thursday night. And
How's that? Is that good?
No. For context, last year's Alabama Michigan game drew 27.8 million viewers in the college football playoff.
Ouch. That's a 33% difference. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. The college football playoff.
A lot of times the networks have to kick back some money if they don't hit the numbers to their advertisers.
Oh, I didn't know that they do.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
So like when you don't hit your numbers, your expected numbers, or come close to it, big deal. Not a little deal, big deal.
Big deal. And by the way, here's the crazy part. They did this on Thursday and Friday to avoid competing with the NFL on Saturday, and they still drew these ratings. The college football playoff quarterfinals had 16.9 million viewers. For context, the meaningless SEC championship game, the meaningless one. So when I say the quarterfinals, they average 16.9 million viewers a game, the college football playoff quarterfinals. This year's SEC title game got 16.6 million viewers. The meaningless SEC title game almost drew the same as the college football playoff quarterfinals. And those were the games that were around New Year's. That's like college football's day, right?
Yes.
It's New Year's. So you're talking those bowl games everybody loved barely outdrew the SEC title game, which didn't really mean anything because both teams were going to the playoff anyway. This is, and that doesn't even get me started on the fact that the first round, Dave, was awful. 6.3 million. Tennessee Ohio State was the highest rated first round game at 6.3 million viewers. Indiana Notre Dame was 5.7. Clemson Texas was 3.6, and SMU Penn State was 3.1. That's like, those are not good numbers for TV ratings for what they've done. I mean, I'm going to say it. It's been a total disaster this year's college football playoff.
Okay. Do you cut them any slack because it's year number one? Oftentimes, I can tell you.
The first step.
Have you seen the latest try?
Good gracious. I didn't mean to play any of that. My question is, do you cut them some slack because this is year number one, Caleb, or does it need a major overhaul? Last look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me. No contacts, no glasses, because I had LASIK done by local doctors that care about me.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at CCTI.
Major overhaul?
Yes, there needs to be a major overhaul, but I don't cut them slack for this year. The novelty of this should have drawn enough ratings from people just interested in to see what it's going to be like.
Like the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight.
Yes, exactly. And it didn't. There are a lot of extenuating circumstances. Let's first put this out there. Because they were playing games on that first Saturday to compete with NFL regular season games on Saturday, they had to move games off of ABC, ESPN, and they put them on TNT Sports. That was a problem, number one. The other problem...
Well, I'll tell you this, too, and I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Dave, your mic got muted. Sorry. I'm sorry. 1 second, Dave. I think it's either you or me. We have a mic issue. I believe your mic is muted, Dave. But I would venture to say that not having enough SEC teams hurt, and I know people are talking about that. Texas being the only one in the Final Four was a problem. Putting games on TNT was another issue. They didn't put any of the games on ABC. I don't know why they didn't dual cast ESPN and ABC. That's what they do with the NBA games on Sunday. I think they should have done that. That was a big mistake. So I think there's I also just think when they schedule this, I think putting these games around Christmas is a mistake. I think too many people travel around Christmas and New Year's. So I think it's kind of a big issue. Let's take a quick break and try to get Dave's mic back, and try to get the mic back. 2 minutes off the hook sports. Just give us 1 second, guys.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Guys, we apologize for our technical difficulties. We are going to have to end the show early. Hopefully, we will be back tomorrow with things going okay. But thank you guys all for tuning in with Dave Hooker. This is Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Again, we will be back on at 10 a.m. tomorrow. You guys have a great rest of your day. See you later.